Thank you for stopping by the Life of Sassy. This week I have an Instant Pot recipe as well as 2 quick and easy get them on the table dinners. If you enjoy all things to do with food, please consider joining my YouTube family by clicking that subscribe button, and if you like What's for Dinner videos, please give me a thumbs up. Hey everyone, the first meal on this week's meal plan is my Instant Pot lasagna. This is a recipe we have made before and we quite enjoy, but we don't make it that often, and mainly it's because I find I'm still not fully comfortable using the Instant Pot. I got really good at using it to make side dishes, but I still find when it comes to using the Instant Pot, I'm a little bit hesitant. So I have set out a goal for myself to use the Instant Pot more and get more comfortable with it. It is an amazing tool once you know how to use it, but I definitely am still hesitant. So that is one of my goals, is to use the Instant Pot more. I have found about a handful of recipes we really enjoy, and this is one of them. Here is everything I'm going to need to make my Instant Pot lasagna. Freshly grated Parmesan, ricotta cheese, Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper. I'm going to be using homemade bolognese. For my pasta, I'll be using fusilli, and here's some mozzarella I need to grate. I'm going to be making a few tweaks to this recipe. We have had it before. The recipe says you can use cottage cheese or ricotta. We prefer ricotta in here. I'm going to go ahead and add half a cup of ricotta cheese to my bowl. The recipe calls for a full cup, but we just find that to be a little bit too much, so we've reduced it to half a cup. One of the tweaks we made to this recipe is to season the ricotta. Here I am adding about 1/8 of a teaspoon each of salt and freshly ground black pepper. Next, I'm going to add in about half a teaspoon each of onion powder and garlic powder. I don't measure out my spices, I just eyeball them in. Lastly, for the spices, I'm going to add about half a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And then, because you can never go wrong with freshly grated Parmesan, I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons right into the ricotta mixture. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix this up. Once the spices have been incorporated, I'm going to go ahead and just set this off to the side until I need it. Here is my new favorite kitchen gadget. I am absolutely in love. Thank you to Mandy in the making. I see her use this all the time, and I just had to get myself one. Mine came in last week. I'm just going to go ahead and grate the mozzarella. There's probably more mozzarella here than I need, but since I have the grater out, I'm just going to grate it all, and I will pop what we don't use into the fridge. There we go. My mozzarella has been grated. Typical me, I've made a mess, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that up, and then I will just put the mozzarella off to the side until we need it. I've gone ahead and put my Instant Pot on my counter, and I'm spraying it really well with cooking spray. This recipe will stick if you don't use cooking spray. The recipe, which I will link below, does tell you how to make the sauce in your Instant Pot before you pressure cook it. But since we made homemade bolognese the day before, I'm just going to go ahead and add that. I'm adding in 3 scoops to the bottom of my Instant Pot. Next, I'm adding in 4 cups of uncooked pasta on top of my bolognese sauce. The last thing I'm going to add before we pressure cook this is 3 cups of water. You just go ahead and pour that on top of your pasta. You do not stir this dish prior to pressure cooking it. You do want to make sure that all of your pasta is submerged. I'm just going ahead and patting mine down. I'm just putting on my Instant Pot lid, and I made sure that my vent was turned to ceiling. And now I'm going to go ahead and set it on manual pressure for 4 minutes. And we're ready to go. My Instant Pot just finished. This recipe calls for a quick release, so I'm just releasing the pressure, and then I will go ahead and open up my Instant Pot. My Instant Pot has now released all the pressure, and I'm going to go ahead and open the lid. Oops, sorry about the steam. I should have had the camera a little further back. I'm going to give the mixture a good stir and make sure that all of the water has been absorbed. Then I'm going to add in my ricotta mixture. I'm just stirring in my ricotta mixture to fully incorporate it. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle the top of my lasagna with a nice layer of mozzarella cheese. I do want to add a really nice layer on top because it's lasagna and you want that ooey gooey cheesy layer that we all look forward to on the top. This is not in the recipe, but I'm going ahead and adding about 1/8 of a cup of grated parm on top. We just love parm on all of our pasta dishes. Now I'll put the lid back on and I'm going to let this sit for about 3 to 5 minutes until the cheese is melted. It's been about 5 minutes and as you can see the cheese has nicely melted on the top of my lasagna, and now I'm just going to go ahead and serve it up for dinner tonight. Here is tonight's dinner. We have Instant Pot lasagna, a Caesar salad, and a garlic bun. This week was just one of those weeks. I completely missed filming all of my intros and outros, so now I'm doing it as I edit the video. The first meal we made was the Instant Pot lasagna. We've had this before, we love it, but we have made some tweaks to the recipe. The original will be linked down below, but the few tweaks we have made. The original recipe says you can use cottage cheese or ricotta. We prefer it with ricotta. The odd thing is when we make regular lasagna, we do use cottage cheese. I've tried it with both, but by far we prefer the ricotta in this recipe. The other thing is we have cut the ricotta in half. The first time I made it, I did use the full cup that the recipe calls for, but we just found it a little bit heavy. So we found that reducing it to half a cup, we prefer it as well. I do flavor my ricotta. I absolutely love ricotta, but it doesn't have a lot of flavor. One of the things I love about ricotta is adding flavorings to it. So I do show you in the video that I do add additional seasonings to the ricotta. I just like the way it tastes, and anytime I can mix in a little bit more freshly grated parm or some Italian seasoning, I go for it. We love this dish. Like I said in the intro, I'm still getting used to using my Instant Pot, but we definitely need to make this recipe more. We do love it, and it is so simple to make. You can make it with a pre-made sauce, as you saw in my video. We tend to use bolognese because we make it in a big batch and freeze it, but the recipe below does also tell you how to make the sauce in your Instant Pot. But this is definitely one we need to start making in our household a little bit more often. The next meal we made this week was chicken enchiladas. This is something that we've just recently started making in our household, but has quickly become a favorite. I like it because it is so quick and easy to get on the table, and that's why it actually got made this day. Was I was running behind. 1 minute it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, I need to take something out for dinner. Next thing I knew, it was 3:15 and I had no plan. Chicken enchiladas was on the meal plan for the week, so tonight was the night. Outside of the 30 minutes it takes to bake this meal, you can get it on the table so quickly, and that's what I love about it, so let's get cooking. Here is everything I'm going to use to make the chicken enchiladas tonight. In my area, I haven't been able to find enchilada sauce in the store, so we make our own. Here I have my tortillas defrosting. We keep those in the freezer. These are whole wheat. In here I have 8 ounces of passata. It calls for tomato sauce, but we always use passata when it calls for tomato sauce because that's what we keep in our pantry. And there's also 1.5 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to go ahead and cut up a couple of these mushrooms. We'll be putting cheese in them and on top of them. As well, I'll cut up about half of this pepper. And in this bowl, I have 3 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of cumin. The recipe doesn't call for it, but I also added 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper. we have made this recipe before and just feel that it does need that little pinch of pepper. And lastly, because the afternoon got away from me, there is my shredded chicken defrosting in the freezer using the cold water method. Plus, I forgot to get it out, but I will also need 3 tablespoons of butter to make the sauce. Here I have my 3 tablespoons of butter just melting in my pan. Once it's melted, I'm going to go ahead and add in my flour and spices. I'll link the original recipe down below. In the original recipe, they don't add the spices till later. I like them added into the roux. I find it gives it a little bit more flavor, and that's how I've always done it. I should also mention that this pan is over medium-low heat. My butter is all melted, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in my flour and my spices and just give this a stir. You're going to cook this for a couple of minutes to let the raw flour flavor cook out. Okay, looks like I'm going to need a little bit more butter. Let me grab some of that. Okay, I've let this cook for about a minute or 2 so all of the raw flour flavor has cooked out. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my passata and chicken broth. There we go. Now I'm just going to stir it to incorporate it, and I'm actually going to turn the heat up to medium-high, and I just want to bring this up to a light boil to let it thicken. At this point, you need to stir it constantly to incorporate in all of the flour and spices. Okay, there's just a few bubbles there, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it back down to medium-low and continue to stir it. You want to keep stirring it until it thickens and you see that all of your spices and flour have been incorporated in. You don't want any lumps in your sauce. My sauce seems like it's a little bit thick, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more chicken broth in. Okay, that's good there. I'm going to turn the heat off, take this off the heat, and get everything ready to go in my enchiladas. In this bowl, I have my shredded chicken, half of a pepper I finely diced, and about 5 mushrooms I finely diced. I'm going to go ahead and add in 3 spoonfuls of sauce, and I'm just going to mix that up. You don't want a ton of sauce in it, just enough to give it a bit of that enchilada flavor and to moisten it a little bit. That isn't quite enough, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm just going to set this off to the side. Here I have the pan I'm going to cook my enchiladas in. I'm going to go ahead and spray it really well with cooking spray. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of the sauce to the bottom. It's probably going to take about 3 spoonfuls, maybe 4. Nope, 3 is gonna do it. So now I'm just gonna set this off to the side and I can start working on my enchiladas. Now I've wiped down my counter. I'm gonna set up an assembly line to put these together. Each one is going to get a little bit of the chicken mixture, some cheese, and then I will just roll it up and put it in my pan. Now I'm going to go ahead and just do all of these ones. My oven is preheated to 350. I ended up with 2 trays. I just went ahead and topped them with the additional sauce and sprinkled them with cheddar cheese. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop these in and let them cook for 30 minutes. The enchiladas have been in for 30 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and take them out. You can see that the cheese is all melted and the sauce is bubbly. I'm just going to leave these to sit on the oven for about 5 minutes before I serve them up. Here is tonight's dinner, chicken enchiladas topped with a little bit of sour cream. We've made these chicken enchiladas before. As I mentioned in the video, I have found it hard to find enchilada sauce locally. I've checked in 2 different grocery stores as well. I tried to add it to my grocery order when I did a Walmart pickup. Walmart does have it, but the can they have seems very small. So we've taken to making our own sauce, although I had to laugh because the day after I made this, I got an email from one of our local grocery store chains, and one of their new offerings for spring and summer is enchilada sauce. With that being said, we will continue to use this homemade version. It is so quick and easy to make and has absolutely amazing flavor. I'm not sure if it's authentic. It probably isn't, but we love it. I also did make some tweaks to the recipe, including that I add the spices to the roux. I just find that it gives the sauce a lot more flavor. And honestly, that's how I've always made roux. If there's spices going into the recipe, I always add them to the roux. So I continue to do that. But once you have the sauce made, and it really only takes about 5 minutes once you have all the ingredients portioned out, this meal is so quick and easy to make and get it on the table. I can usually get it in the oven in about 15-20 minutes flat, and then it's just a 30-minute cooking time where I can do other things. But this is a recipe that will remain on repeat in our house. We absolutely love it. The third meal we made this week was a new to us recipe. It is baked oven chicken bite. Then I went ahead and made some rice on the side. I have started baking my rice in the oven. I just find it to be the quickest, easiest method. With that being said, going into summer, once it gets hot and I don't want to turn my oven on, I will switch to making it in the Instant Pot. As well, I just decided let's keep it simple. I had a zucchini and mushrooms as well as part of a pepper to use up, so those are going to be sauteed up on the side as a side dish. For a side dish with dinner tonight, I'm going to be making sauteed vegetables. This will include zucchini, half a pepper left over from last night's dinner, and some mushrooms. To get started, I'm just going to go ahead and cut my zucchini into half-moon slices. I want these fairly thin. They're going to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. Next, I'm going to cut up my mushrooms. I went ahead and cleaned these off camera, and now I'm just going to cut them into about a 1/2 inch dice. Here are the mushrooms I cut up. Initially, I used half a package of mushrooms, but as I look at this, I don't think it's going to be enough. So I've gone ahead and cleaned the other half of the package, and now I'm going to go ahead and chop those up. The last thing I'm going to chop up for my veggie saute is this half a red pepper left over from when I made the chicken enchiladas. I'm just going to cut this up into a 1/2 inch dice and set it off to the side. And there we have it. My peppers, my mushrooms, and my zucchini have all been chopped up to saute for tonight's dinner. I'm also going to be serving rice tonight. I make mine in the oven. Here I have a casserole dish with about a tablespoon of butter. I'm adding 3.5 cups of boiling water. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 cups of long grain white rice. Lastly, I'm just going to shake the pan to make sure all of the rice is submerged. And then I'm going to cover it in aluminum foil, tightly wrapped to keep all of the steam in. This will be going in a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes, and then you let it sit for 5 minutes on the stove once it's done cooking. I will be serving rice a second night this week, so in the background you can see I have another pan to make another batch for later in the week. Here's everything I need to make my oven-baked chicken bite. I went ahead and dumped a package of chicken chunks into the dish. It calls for the chicken chunks to be cut in a 1-inch cube. Since we already pre-cut our chicken before we freeze it, I'm going to go ahead and use the smaller chunks. I'm going to need some olive oil, butter, and then here is my spice mixture. Here we have my spice mixture. It calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I didn't do quite that much. I have a full teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder and garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of smoked paprika. The recipe calls for regular paprika. I prefer smoked. And then I don't know if you can see it right in the middle. I have 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. I'm just going to go ahead and mix this all together. And then I'm just going to go ahead and dump it on my chicken. Then you're going to go ahead and add a tablespoon of olive oil. And then you just want to mix everything up in your baking dish until the chunks are fully coated in the seasoning mix. Now you need to take 2 tablespoons of butter, and you're supposed to dice it into little cubes and sprinkle it on top. I'm using an open package and my butter's soft, so I'm just going to put on little pats. since my chicken chunks are smaller and I'm also cooking my rice in the oven, I'm only preheating my oven to 350. The original recipe calls for 420 for 16 to 18 minutes. I'm going to do 350, check it at 20, but the rice is in for 30 anyways. So now I'm just going to go ahead and wait for my oven to finish preheating. My oven has come up to 350 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and add in both casserole dishes of rice. One is for tonight's dinner, one is for a dinner I'm making later in the week. These will cook for 30 minutes. In the same oven, I'm also going to add my chicken bites. I'm going to cook these for 20 minutes and check them. I really wish they'd fit on this top rack, but it's just not going to happen, so I'll put them down the bottom. While everything else for dinner is in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and saute my vegetables on the stove. I have a pan that I've preheated over medium-low heat, and I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to keep these vegetables pretty basic tonight. I want the main flavors to come from the chicken. The first thing I'm going to add is my red peppers. I like to let these cook for about 2 to 3 minutes before I add the other vegetables so that they can soften a little bit. My red peppers have sauteed down, so now I'm going to go ahead and add my zucchini. I'm going to let this cook down probably again another 2 to 3 minutes before I add my mushrooms because I don't like my mushrooms fully cooked. So I want to make sure that the zucchini and peppers are cooked almost all the way through before I add my mushrooms. My zucchini has been cooking down for about 3 minutes. It's just starting to become soft. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in my mushrooms. After adding in my mushrooms, I'm going to go ahead and add my seasonings. Like I said, I'm keeping it pretty basic tonight. Just a pinch of black pepper, and then I'm going to shake on about a 1/4 teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder, and then I'll give this a stir and let it cook down. And it would not be one of my videos if I didn't shoot something out of the pan while I was stirring. My chicken's been cooking for just over 20 minutes. I believe it was about 23 minutes. It's done, so I'm just going to take it out of the oven and push it off to the side until my rice is ready. I'm just giving my vegetables a final stir. They're done. I've turned the heat off, but I'm going to take them off the heat so they don't keep cooking and just wait for my rice to be done. My timer has now gone off. My rice has been in for 30 minutes. I'm just going to take both batches out, put them on top of the stove, and let them rest for about 5 minutes, and then I can serve up dinner. Here is tonight's dinner served up. We have my oven-baked chicken bites, my sauteed vegetables with zucchini, red pepper, and mushrooms, and some white rice on the side. A few notes on this meal. The oven-baked chicken bites were a new recipe for us. It's linked in the description below. With that being said, the recipe does mention to serve it with cauliflower rice so that you can drizzle the sauce over it. I had no sauce. I followed the recipe, but when mine came out of the oven, the chicken was baked, but there was no sauce. I'm not sure if I did something wrong. Maybe one of my measurements was off. We will try it again. The other note on this is they are a bit spicy. If you're not someone who likes spicy food, you definitely want to scale back on the cayenne. I'm not a big lover of spicy. This was just kind of on the border for me. I did eat them. I enjoyed the flavor of them. But next time I probably will take the spice back just a little bit. But other than that, it was a great dish. I'm going to make it again, see if I can figure out what I did wrong, because I really was looking forward to that sauce to drizzle over our rice. But with that being said, we will definitely make this dish again. The flavor was amazing. It had a ton of flavor. I'm always looking for different ways to flavor chicken. By far, our household eats more chicken than any other protein. So I'm always looking for new ideas. So I will make this again, but yeah, have to figure out why I didn't have a sauce. Thank you for stopping by The Life of Sassy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider joining my YouTube family by clicking that subscribe button down below. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks again for stopping by, everyone, and have a great day.